All right, let's get started. Hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome to today's Wellness Wednesday on the topic of cultivating well-being through evidence, connection, and community. My name is Lily. I'm one of the program assistants for the BC Brain Wellness Program, and I will be your MC for today. Before we dive in, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that the BC Brain Wellness Program at the Javad Moafeyan Center for Brain Health resides on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam peoples. As a settler here, I think it's really crucial to recognize the profound relationships we have with the Indigenous peoples and their land, and to continue to honor and nurture these connections. It is truly a privilege to be able to offer our program on Musqueam land. And I know we're probably joined from various locations today because we are all on Zoom. So I urge each of us to pause and reflect on the history of the land that you may inhabit. We will post a resource in the chat that will have some information regarding that. All right, so let's move on to introducing our two speakers today. So we're so grateful to have Dr. Joanie Gould and Dr. Joanna Pozzulo joining us today. So a little bit about Dr. Gould. She's a principal scientist of the Active Aging Research Team, the executive director of the Active Aging Society, and a clinical associate professor in the Department of Family Practice at UBC. The goal of Dr. Gould's work is to add life to the later years. So her research designs, implements, and evaluates scale-up of flexible health-promoting interventions such as Choose to Move for older adults, while assessing factors that influence older adult health indicators such as mobility, social connectedness. She also evaluates translation of research findings for different groups to optimize impact, and she works closely with a broad range of partner groups that span BC, beyond, and is also a registered social worker. And next we have Dr. Joanna Pozzulo. So Dr. Pozzulo is a chancellor's professor in the Department of Psychology, the director of the Mental Health and Wellbeing Research and Training Hub, and she's also the director of the Laboratory for Child Forensic Psychology at Carleton University. So Dr. Pozzulo's main research program aims to understand how memory in the context of witnessing crime differs across the lifespan with a focus on the young eyewitness. So her goal is to reduce wrongful conviction through evidence-based approaches. And Dr. Pozzulo is also passionate about teaching and research on well-being. She has created university capstone courses focused on well-being that include experimental learning opportunities. And her goal is to use evidence-based work to promote well-being to a general audience. So in today's talk, our researchers and our speakers will explore how engaging in activities with others can unlock new levels of well-being through the power of connection and community. Dr. Gould will be giving an overview on her Choose to Move programs, which is an evidence-based physical activity and social connectedness program that has been implemented across BC. And Dr. Pozzulo will examine the research related to reading in addition to the benefits of being part of a community. She will give insight into her book club project. And of course, I would like to thank all of our program donors for supporting the BC Brain Wellness Program. It is because of your generosity that we are able to offer these accessible educational events and classes. So as an entirely donor-funded program, we rely on your generosity to ensure the continuation and development of our program. So thank you so much for your ongoing support. And just a couple of housekeeping notes before we begin. If you have any questions for our presenter today, feel free to type them in the chat box. If you want to ask your questions privately, all good, just send it directly to me in the chat. And if you can just indicate who the question is directed towards or both. And we will have a Q&A session at the end. And reminder just to keep your mics muted throughout the talk. And this presentation is being recorded and it'll be made live on our YouTube channel within about 2 weeks' time. All right. In addition, we are actively recruiting for 2 research studies. So we have the Impact 360 study, and we are recruiting for healthy agers and those with Parkinson's to understand the health impacts of a combined virtual exercise, cooking, and mindfulness class intervention. If you are interested, our email is impact.360@ubc.ca. We will also post these emails in the chat in a bit. Furthermore, we have a new dietary intervention to understand the impact of diet on symptoms and the microbiome of those with Parkinson's. So if you are eligible and interested, feel free to give us a email, send us an email at pd.diet@ubc.ca. And if you know anyone who may be eligible, who may be interested, it would be greatly appreciated if you can pass on the message. And these interventions are at no cost to you. And we also have some upcoming June events. We have a research seminar on somatization, which is when emotional or psychological distress / factors manifest as physical symptoms. This is happening on June 4th at the same time. And we also have an in-person forest bathing activity at Pacific Spirit Park on June 26th from 1 to 2. So hopefully you can join us. And without further ado, I will stop chatting and I will pass the mic to Dr. Sims Gould. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. And please, everyone, just refer to me as Joanie. I'm really, really excited to be here with you today, and to be able to share um, our story really about Choose to Move across British Columbia, and also to hear the second presenter share her presentation. So today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about a program called Choose to Move, as Lily had already indicated. And really the whole goal of the program is to keep older people active and connected. Before I do that, though, I'm going to spend a little bit of time reflecting on the research, and it's kind of a sad story. So just a bit of a disclaimer, I'm going to tell you a bit of a story of doom and gloom, but then I'm going to take you back and give you some solutions and hopefully paint a much more positive picture as we head into the end of our presentation. I too am sitting on the unceded ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh people, and I live in what we commonly call Vancouver. I'm sitting in Vancouver. That being said, our research is across all of British Columbia, and so we are grateful to all of the nations in our province for their stewardship and the ability to deliver Choose to Move across this beautiful province. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to start out by telling you a bit of a doom and gloom story within the research. And in particular, what I want to focus on are two epidemics that are facing people as they age. Um, my perspective is that of the executive director of the Active Aging Society and as principal scientist of the Active Aging research team at the University of British Columbia. Okay, so the first epidemic is an epidemic of physical inactivity. We know that the vast majority of people do not get enough physical activity. They're not meeting guidelines. And in fact, 90% of the population is sedentary greater than 8 hours a day. We know that this is problematic. Physical activity has been identified as one of the major risk factors for global mortality. And that within Canada, we see massive expenditures as a result of physical inactivity. We know that low fitness kills more people than smoking, diabetes, and obesity combined. I'll let everybody just pause and think about that for a second. So low fitness kills more people than smoking, diabetes, and obesity all combined. And we know that when you're physically active, that it improves your mobility. So what are we talking about? Mobility, the ability to move within your space, your community, and being mobile is really the best guarantee of retaining your independence as we grow older. So if I were able to prescribe you one medication that had no contradictions to any other medication, that was free, that really did not have any adverse side effects, and you could take it wherever you wanted, and it improved mood, bone health, brain health, flexibility, energy, memory, weight management, diabetes risk, hip fractures, and overall increased your quality of life, I think we would all take it. But we don't. Of course, this magic pill that I'm talking about is being physically active, and there's a whole host of reasons why people don't engage in enough activity. And I will, as a disclaimer, when I'm talking about physical activity, I'm talking about moving a little bit more than everybody is already doing. So I'm not talking about the front page 100-year-old marathon runner. That person we're not worried about. We're worried about, those people who are not getting any little to no activity a day. So those people who fall into that sedentary for 8 or more hours. There was a very sort of clever video that came out a number of years ago called 24 and a half hours. And the whole premise of this informational video was to limit, or 23 and a half hours rather, was to limit your sitting in line to 23 and a half hours a day. So of course, the converse to that was, make sure you move for half an hour a day, whatever that looks like for you. So why don't more people engage in physical activity? Well, I kind of have my own personal opinion, and this is just based on my experience. I mean, research will tell you there are a whole range of options, but I think sometimes when people hear the words physical activity, they think that you need a special outfit to do it, that you need to have, a class or, be able to wear spandex, or it has to be some kind of an organized activity. And that's not true. Physical activity can be, walking from your car into the grocery store. It can be moving from your couch to your sink. It can be some gentle stretching within your home environment. It can be a whole range of activities, none of which require special outfits or organized classes. Okay, so I said I was painting a bit of a doomy picture. The second epidemic that we know that are facing an aging population is social isolation. And in fact, 20% of the older population indicates that they are socially isolated or lonely. So 1 in 5 people. And we know that being socially isolated can increase all-cause mortality, so your chance of death by all causes by 26%. Some folks have indicated that the health impacts of being lonely are equal to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So you may have heard sitting is the new smoking. Indeed, the research would indicate that's true. So physical inactivity, lack of social connections are really two areas that are epidemic amongst an aging population. We know that social connectedness protects against loneliness. Um, and we know that most physical activity programs for older people can create and sustain social connectedness among partnerships, which then leads us to the program that I'm going to be sharing with you for the remainder of our presentation, and that is Choose to Move. So the genesis of Choose to Move was really that, to design an evidence-based program to move the dial on physical activity and social connectedness for older people. What makes Choose to Move particularly special is the choosing part. And that is that it's choice-based. It's not a prescriptive exercise program, it's a coaching program. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more in the coming slides about what that looks like. So Choose to Move involves uh, over a 3-month time period, one-on-one consultation with an activity coach. So that's somebody who will sit down and focus on goal setting and also look at any limitations that an individual might have, whether they be physical limitations, whether they be transportation limitations, financial limitations, and determine what are your goals for physical activity and connectedness. And then over a period of 3 months, participants participate in 8 group meetings that are focused on education, goal setting, overcoming obstacles to achieving goals, and some information related to various topics of interest: nutrition, fall risk, physical exercise programs in your community, etc. The activity coach is really central to this program. That person sees you through the entire program, and typically there's about 10 to 15 participants in a Choose to Move group. We offer them both in person and virtually. So participants are supported, as I indicated, around problem solving, goal setting, creating social connections, choosing what they like. There's that education component, and there's a lot of resource sharing within the community. Again, I said in person and virtual, and we really work with the organizations that deliver Choose to Move. So, as Active Aging Society, we're really a support to a whole network of organizations that deliver Choose to Move. Um, and we support them through activity coach training. We assist with recruitment resources, program materials, delivery support, and we host community of practice for all of our coaches and organizations that are involved. Really, partnerships with those organizations are the cornerstone of the Choose to Move program. Because we are all across the province of British Columbia, we are able to work with both very small and large delivery organizations. So the YMCA, the BC Recs and Parks Association, and then smaller municipalities and neighborhood houses and not-for-profit organizations. In this way, we really feel that we're able to reach diverse populations across the province. So this is just a schemata that shows when we started Choose to Move in 2016. We started with 2 provincial partners. So very up here in the left-hand corner, you can see the Y and the BCRPA logo. All the way through to today, you can see the host of partners that we're working with across British Columbia, doing this hard work in the community. So to date, Choose to Move has reached almost 13,000 older adults. We've delivered over 1,100 programs across 124 sites, and we've trained over 200 activity coaches across the province. Within the context of our research, we've been able to show that there are increases for those who participate in their physical activity, increased social connectedness, decreased loneliness, and increased community access to community resources. Probably one of the best parts about Choose to Move are the testimonials that we receive from participants. We often hear from folks that, came for the social component and became physically active through that social component. And we hear the converse as well, that people who came for the physical activity and as a consequence of being involved in Choose to Move made friends, and now are exercising on a more regular basis. We've adapted Choose to Move for several multilingual groups across the province. So Choose to Move is being delivered at present in Punjabi, and this is an example of our one of our Punjabi speaking groups. In order to make sure that Choose to Move was culturally appropriate, we undertook a full cultural adaptation for Choose to Move. So it wasn't just about translating it into one language or another, but rather making sure that it was both culturally responsive and was meeting the goals of the Punjabi speaking community. So here is a couple of examples of our recruitment and program materials, how they look a little bit different for our Punjabi speaking groups. We've also recently started groups in Chinese and also in Persian, and again, undertaking these cultural adaptations for the program itself, tracking the adaptation process, and also evaluating in multiple languages. An exciting new program that we're going to be launching next month is an adaptation of Choose to Move for individuals who are on surgical wait lists for hip and knee replacement. Oftentimes, people spend a long time very isolated on these wait lists. And so this is an opportunity. This is a program that has been adapted and is being run under the supervision of a colleague of mine who is a clinician scientist, a physiotherapist with a background in osteoarthritis, and her science has centered there. So Choose to Move Replacement Ready is coming to you. And again, it looks very similar to the 3-month model of Choose to Move, where you have the 8 group meetings. Some of the education sessions are more focused on the osteoarthritis experience. Again, it's got that support from the trained activity coach and goal setting, and really an action plan to set and reach your both activity and connectedness goals. In addition to the Choose to Move program, our group, the Active Aging Society, offers a number of communication products and other resources to individuals who have enrolled in the Choose to Move program or who are interested in Choose to Move and want access to the resource. So this is available to everybody without even having to sign up for the program. So we've got a Get Active portal, which has a number of strength, balance, and flexibility videos to help keep you connected at home. And again, these are all vetted by our clinical team. And so we know that these are safe and accessible for most people at home. We do Choose to Move check-in, so you can subscribe to a check-in where you'll get a bi-weekly email on how to stay active at home and then information about resources and challenges to keep you motivated. So we just end up in your inbox every other week, reminding you to stick to your goals. We have a newsletter, and again, a lot of the information that gets pumped out through the connection or on our portal is also available by newsletter format. We have a Facebook page where we've developed a community, so you can join that. And again, all of this information is hosted there. Also LinkedIn and on Instagram. So many, many resources across the Choose to Move program available for individuals, both who live in BC and across Canada. Choose to Move specifically is in the BC context, the program itself, but the resources are available to everyone. So I will pause there and thank you for your interest in Choose to Move, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Good. Perfect. Thank you so much, Joanie, for your wonderful presentation and for your insight. I think we can move on to Dr. Pozzulo's presentation. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Someone asked what are the ages that the program is targeted towards.
55 plus.
Oh, yes. John. Oh, John? Yeah, you can go. You can just unmute yourself. Hold on, just give me 1 second.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I have participated in the Choose to Move course at Kerrisdale Community Center and enjoyed it greatly for the reasons you mentioned. I made friends. I learned some exercises that I now continue at home. But as a follow-on to that, have you heard of any initiatives around NORC, which are naturally occurring retirement communities? Where within a building without prior planning, I think it's in excess of 60% of the occupants are elderly. And we're looking to try to develop that idea here locally and then have services delivered to those communities in situ. Are you aware of any of that activity?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic idea. There's a group of scientists out of the University of Toronto that are looking at the naturally occurring retirement communities in the Ontario context. And I do believe that they may be doing some satellite work in BC. So I know that it certainly caught the attention of researchers that are looking to support older people who are living in close proximity and within these communities. But I agree with you that we've certainly talked about it within the context of Choose to Move. Could we deliver a Choose to Move program within one of these communities? And we're really interested in partnering and exploring those kinds of opportunities. We have worked with BC Housing in the past to again look at delivering programs where people are, geographically proximate to one another. So I do think something like Choose to Move is also well designed for these NORC communities. But I really appreciate your experience in Choose to Move. And if you're interested in the science, I'll put in the chat the group out of U of T that's doing that work.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm particularly interested now in following up with this NORC idea, but I cannot find anyone leading this initiative here in Vancouver. I'm aware of the exercise, what's going on in Toronto. And there, I think it's in lab. But there's no leader here sort of collecting the interests and trying to move this idea forward that I can find. I cede to the next person.
Ed? Yeah.
Yes, we just had a question. I'm curious, do you work with any dance work with Choose to Move?
So because Choose to Move is a choice-based program, individuals, come with their own hopes and desires about what they might want to participate in. So we do have like a host of resources that the activity coach would refer people into or would share with folks who might express interest in dance. I can't specifically think of any dance programs right now that that we have a known relationship with per se. What I will tell you is that within the Choose to Move program, the most common activity that people typically identify as being their number one is walking. So, we do have a relationship with a number of walking programs. That being said, those activity coaches are real experts in their own communities. That's why we work with a range of organizations and then activity coaches who are employed in these organizations because they know what's available vis-a-vis community centers. So I know that doesn't really answer your question specifically. I think there are probably people who do choose dance, but I'm not sure. I could certainly find that out from our evaluation data.
Yeah, we're just interested in the research that's linked to how dance also, because it's a different modality
Yes,
that is
absolutely.
with rhythm and with music and with the
Absolutely.
whole body. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we really emphasize the choice. So we don't necessarily subscribe to any one type of movement as being preferable to another. It's really the choice of participants that drives the activities.
Thank you.
Great. Perfect. If there are no other questions, I love how people are connecting in the chat. That's great to see. We will move on to Joanna's presentation.
Great. Does that work? Can everyone see that? Yes, fantastic. Thank you. That was an amazing program. Joni, loved it. You make me want to go for my walk, which I will do as soon as I'm done this. So it's great. It's great to be here. I'm Joanna Pozzulo, and I am a Chancellor's Professor in the Department of Psychology at Carleton University, which is in Ottawa. And I was just saying before we started this, it's very warm here, so I'm sure I'm going to start to sweat when I go for that walk. Today I'm going to be talking about reading for well-being. This is a book club, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about, in general, what the benefits are to reading, and then also the additional benefits you get when you're part of a community. And a book club obviously can be a community-based activity that brings being alone to a group format. In terms of where I want to go today, I want to talk about the benefits of reading. I want to talk about what form reading can take, the benefits of reading as part of a community, what you should read, and then the Reading for Wellbeing Community Book Club, and then of course my picks for potential books that if you're interested in reading for well-being, what you might want to pick up. So books are very powerful. They can educate and improve the well-being of their readers. There's so many benefits that have been found with reading, and I'm going to go through a few of those. It helps cognitive function. It helps with memory, with focus and concentration. Reading more than once a week has been associated with slowing cognitive decline. And one little tip, if you're not a natural reader or you don't tend to pick up books very often, start with 5 or 10 minutes a day. And that is enough to start building your reading muscles. Books also have been found to reduce your stress. Reading can help if you're working and you're finding your work environment or even your home environment stressful. Reading has the ability to reduce stress. One study found that even 6 minutes of reading can reduce stress. And one tip here is set a timer for 6 minutes. 6 minutes. Pick up something that you are interested in learning a little bit more about, and before you'll know it, the 6 minutes will be up, and you'll have learned something new. Improving sleep quality. So reading before bed has been associated with improving the quality of your sleep. And many of us, as we get older, our sleep quality can decline, and making reading part of that sleep hygiene program is very powerful. Keep a book at your bedside that you're looking forward to reading. And again, read for a few minutes, and that will help improve your sleep quality. One other thing is if you choose a book that's maybe a little bit on the boring side, you might not get through the whole the whole chapter, but a few sentences, and you'll find you're nodding off. So keeping a book by your side, bedside, can be really effective to help with your sleep quality. Improving mood. Reading has the power to lift your mood and improve your emotional regulation. Reading can be, if you're feeling a little bit low, picking up a book for a few minutes again and reading can find that you improve your mood. Read or listen to an ebook for a few minutes a day on those days that you're finding that your mood is a little bit lower. And a decrease in blood pressure. Believe it or not, reading can help lower your blood pressure. And if you are experiencing, if you tend to experience increased blood pressure, for example, when you're waiting to see a doctor, bring a book with you in the wait room and read a little bit. And the power of reading has a number of benefits, both cognitively and physically. So one thing I want to stress is that the benefits of reading is not impacted by the format in which you choose to read. So if you are a traditionalist and you like reading physical books, that's great. If you're more inclined to read on a Kobo or an e-reader of some sort, ebooks are fantastic. And there's a lot of people that really enjoy listening to audiobooks. And you can still get the same benefits, maybe not all of them, but you still get a lot of the same benefits if you listen to books. So choose a format that fits with your lifestyle, fits with your schedule, and fits with the situation that you're in. And sometimes you might find one format is a little bit easier than another. For example, you might prefer a traditional book at bed, but when you're waiting to go see the doctor, or you're waiting for another appointment to start, you might find that an ebook is a little bit better. Now, we often think of reading as a solitary activity, but it also can be part of a community. And being part of a reading community can reduce social isolation, it can decrease loneliness, and it can increase connectedness. So many of the same things that you find that Joanie was talking about when you move. Book clubs may allow you to reap the benefits of reading and community. So one of the things I want to stress is, everyone wants to know, what should I read? And the number one thing I say is read what you enjoy. That is the most important thing I can say. If you're interested in reading about health and well-being, you're not alone. In a survey examining views on health and well-being, almost all Canadians responding to the survey reported wanting to improve their well-being. In the self-help category of books, there's over 15,000 books published a year. One thing to keep in mind, though, is not all self-help books are supported by research, and sifting through so many books can be challenging. And this is where I come in. And I just want to say that I'm working on a study where we're looking at the bestsellers, the New York Times bestsellers list, and we identified 22 self-help books in the month of April. And of those 22 books that were in the bestsellers list, only 3 were actually written by someone with either an advanced psychological degree or a medical degree. So pay attention to who the author is when you're looking for books on well-being and overall health. So I started the Reading for Wellbeing Community Book Club through the Mental Health and Wellbeing Research and Training Hub, also known as MEWORTH at Carleton University. And the idea behind this book club was really just to help people sift through the thousands of books available in this domain. Each month, I select an evidence-based book on some aspect of well-being or self-improvement, and I call these picks Professor Pozzulo's picks. And I use an electronic platform to post my picks, my book selections, my reviews. And also the electronic platform allows members of the book club to communicate with each other and to talk about the book. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, as long as you have an email address and access to a computer, you're able to participate in the book club. So a little bit in terms of how the club works. As I say, every month you get an electronic newsletter that has right in your inbox, your email inbox. It'll announce my pick for the month, a review, and a link to the book club discussion board where you can communicate your thoughts about the book and also communicate with each other. So why should you join the community, join the Wellbeing Community Book Club? Well, the objective of this book club is to connect people with the science and strategies for improved well-being within a community. There's no costs, and everyone is welcome to sign up. We've got a website dedicated to the book club, and you can read more information about the club and the benefits of reading on the website. And of course, there's a sign up link if you're interested in getting that newsletter once a month. And one of the other things I found is people really want to know the science. And so what better way to bring people the science than to actually interview the people that wrote about the science? And so I started the Reading for Wellbeing podcast, where I interview the authors of the books I pick. And this is a great opportunity. Book club members can actually email me questions that they want to ask the authors, and I will ask those questions. And it's an opportunity for the members of the book club to actually hear the authors and better understand the science behind the strategies that they find in the books. Now, some people really like the in-person aspect of book clubs, and so what I want to do is try to make those in-person meetings a little bit easier to start up. And so you can, if you want to host a Reading for Wellbeing book club in person, you can, and I have some tips on how you can do that. And one thing to keep in mind is a book club doesn't need to have thousands of members. It can really just be 1 or 2 other people, and it could be 1 or 2 other people that you interact with on a fairly regular basis. It can be a friend, a neighbor, or a caregiver, and just ask them if they want to be part of the book club or help you host a book club meeting. If you're still having trouble finding members, reach out to people that you know. If you live in an apartment building, connect with the superintendent. If there's a local community center, reach out to the manager at the local community center or the library at your public library and ask if there's anyone that might be interested in joining your book club. Again, the idea is start small, 1 or 2 people, and they can talk with you about the books that we identify. I would strongly recommend choosing a public location if you want to hold an in-person book club meeting. A local coffee shop, your community center, or even the public library often has spaces where you can connect with and chat about books. Feel free to choose a book as part of one of Professor Pozzulo's picks. You can read the book prior to the meeting, listen to the book. Keep in mind you can share the book. Don't feel that you have to go out and buy the book. If you just want to try it out, often the library has these books available either through physical copy or e-copy. The books that I choose for the book club are all fairly mainstream books that you can find. They're readily available. And I also say, in case you don't want to get or you can't get through the entire book, or you maybe don't want to read the whole book, you could just listen to the podcast as well, and that can form a basis on which to talk about the book with your book club members. The other thing that we are providing as part of the Reading for Wellbeing Community Book Club is downloadable book kits. So if you do want to host an in-person Reading for Wellbeing Community Book meeting, you can download the book kit. It has some discussion questions. It has a little bit more about the author and the book. It also has, I throw in a recipe in there for a snack if you want that as well. And then the last thing I would suggest is signing up for the Reading for Wellbeing book club. That way you can stay in the loop. You can know what the latest books are that we're picking, and hopefully one of them will resonate with you, and then you're able to use that as part of your book club meeting. I have two book club recommendations. These are probably two of my favorite books that really, I think, impacted my well-being. And so I'm hoping that it might impact your well-being as well. The first one is called The Positive Shift, Mastering Mindset to Improve Happiness, Health, and Longevity by Catherine A. Sanderson. Catherine is a professor at Amherst College out in Boston. And this was a fantastic book. I had the opportunity of interviewing her for the podcast as well. And she really talks about how our level of happiness, our physical health, and even our longevity is connected to how we think about ourselves and the world around us. And it really comes down to our mindset. So by making small changes, we can help improve our happiness and health, both mental and physical. The book is full of strategies and science and the science behind them to help you shift your mindset. And one really interesting finding in this book was that by reading 3.5 hours a week, you can increase your longevity. And I thought, well, count me in. I think I can do that. And so I strongly recommend The Positive Shift for anyone that is interested in finding ways that they can maybe bring more positivity, more happiness into their life. And then the other book that I've selected is one that connects to the work that Joanie is doing, and it's called Move the Body, Heal the Mind. And this is by a faculty member out of McMaster University. Her name is Jennifer Heiss. I had the pleasure of interviewing her for the podcast as well, and she really talks a lot about the science behind how moving your body can impact your overall well-being and your mental health and your wellness. And there's lots of great strategies in the book. There's exercise plans. And again, one point that Joanie made is we're not necessarily saying that you've got to run a marathon or do tons of exercise to get the benefits. There's one finding that suggests even something as little as 15 minutes 4 times a day can improve your well-being. And so in this book, there's great discussion of the science and strategies on how moving your body can impact your mental well-being. And those are my two best recommendations if you're interested in being part of the Reading for Wellbeing Community Book Club. They're evidence-based, and I think you'll get a lot out of them. And as I say, the podcast also brings the research and the strategies to life because the authors really are able to translate the science in a way that I think a lot of us can understand and relate to. And that's kind of it. That's all I wanted to say about the Reading for Wellbeing Community Book Club. I'm happy to share or answer your questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Joanna, for presenting great information. Does anyone have any questions here? Yes, Priscilla. Oh, yeah.
Hi, I don't really have a question, but what I was gonna say is that I'm in the dark still here. One of the things that I'm very happy to I've already joined. I kind of multitasked when I was listening to you, so I joined.
Great.
Um, what I wanted to just say is what I've noticed. I used to be an avid reader, but I have become addicted to YouTube. And
Yes.
so at night, I scroll YouTube before I go to bed, and I don't even have the attention span anymore to read.
Okay.
So I'm just wanting to share that with people is that I think that our span for attention is really suffering.
Yes.
Yeah, just wanted
Yeah,
to.
and I would just say there's research around that. And so, Priscilla, you're not alone. It actually bears out in some of the research that we're doing where attention span has decreased over the years. Another great book that I will recommend that sort of talks about our attention span and social media use is called The Anxious Generation. And it really talks about the impacts that social media has had over the past 20 years, 30 years. And so you're not alone if you find yourself sort of reading less and scrolling more. What I would recommend though is start, even if you don't have to necessarily read for an hour or even half an hour, 5, 5, 6, 10 minutes, and even just that, you'll reap tons of benefits by just a few minutes a day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, we have one question in the chat. Oh yes, the book, sorry, it's a suggestion. The book, How to Break Up with Your Phone is excellent. So
Great.
suggestion for everyone. Yeah, that's something I struggle with as well. So
Yeah,
understand.
you're not alone. Social media has decreased. There's some research, as I say, that has decreased our attention spans, and unfortunately reduced the amount of time we actually spend reading.
For sure. Another tip is just putting the phone like on another floor if you have floors in your
Yeah.
house. So that also helps for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Joni, you have a question.
I do. Am I allowed?
Yes, of course, of course.
Thank you. This is so wonderful. I really appreciate the suggestions in the presentation, Joanna. What is the science behind audiobooks? Is it the mechanism of reading, or will audiobooks do the same?
Yeah. So audiobooks, one of the big things that reading sort of traditional text will do is it distracts you. So there's science about how, it really diverts your attention, changes your focus. Audiobooks have the same tendency. So while you have to be listening to them, consciously listening to them, because it is easy to sort of drift off into a different direction. But by having your attention focused on the text that is playing in your ears, you're still getting those positive impacts of distracting, being able to reduce your sort of negative mood, reduce blood pressure. In terms of the slowing the cognitive decline part, we need a little bit more research to see whether audiobooks has the same impact as reading the physical book. So I would say the jury's a little bit out yet on that particular benefit of reading. So you still get a lot of benefit through audiobooks, but maybe not necessarily all of them if you were reading actual physical text. Yeah, great question.
Perfect. Valerie, yes.
Hi. I just wanted to mention a couple things. One, in 1980, I was in a really catastrophic motor vehicle accident. And because of the brain injury I sustained at that time, I lost the ability to read, as many things. But it's sort of like on a cellular level, I remembered that I was a reader. And I persevered. And all I'm saying is, and now I'm a voracious reader again.
Great.
Which I'm is very exciting for me. Now I have aging, which is providing me with a different challenge in that, and the kind of outcomes that you're talking about are really encourage me to continue. I don't need much encouragement, but the benefits are great to know of, right?
Yep.
And the community idea is another wonderful bonus, another great gift, I guess. So thank you for this whole choose to move. The whole choose to move, but also the idea of the reading for well-being. I'm so excited I listened today. What? This is fantastic. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Valerie. This is amazing. I'm thrilled that you're reading again, and I'm sure Joni's thrilled that you're moving. And and again, I just want to stress from a reading perspective, it doesn't have to be, you know, as I say, long periods of time. If you find that your mind is wandering after, 10, 15 minutes, put the book aside and go for a walk and then come back, and you'll probably be feeling a lot more refreshed and able to read a little bit more. And so you can read for short periods of time throughout the day, and it doesn't have to be all in one sitting. And I think Joni would agree that exercise is kind of the same. It doesn't have to be all in one session. It can be broken down into steps. And I want to put a plug in for the move the body, heal the mind book, because it really does talk about breaking up the movement so that you're not necessarily overdoing it and then you don't want to do it anymore. And so by breaking up the movement, you find that by the end of the day, you've maybe moved 20 minutes when you maybe would not have in the past.
I suspect that many of us here who have sustained or who are having experiences that infringe on our mobility or even our resources of having energy. I mean, I feel like I wake up with about half a cup full, and that's what I have to manage, right?
Yeah.
But I just want to say also, it's interesting you said about the sleeping. So I stopped reading books because they put me to sleep. But what
But
I'm
that's
hearing you say
okay.
is like, so what?
It's so what? That's a good
And
thing.
you
That's
know
a good
what?
thing.
I love that.
Yes, that's a good
Yeah, I
thing.
feel like you're giving me permission to read my book and fall asleep.
I am. You can do that. There are,
Thank you.
sleep is so important for our well-being, our physical health, our mental health. There's a great book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, and it goes through all the science behind the need for sleep and the need for good quality sleep. And one of the tips in the book is about reading and how reading, even for a few minutes before you fall asleep, can really help your sleep quality, and in that can help your well-being and your physical health. So
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you. I
my
can't wait
pleasure.
to read tonight,
Yeah.
right? It's great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Perfect. I don't think there were any other questions. I actually have a question myself, if that's okay. I was just wondering, how have there been measures or studies measuring how effective like self-help and improvement books are for improving mental health outcomes in comparison to psychotherapy? Because I know that therapy is an extremely valuable tool, but it's very expensive if you don't have extended health insurance. Have there been any studies to maybe investigate how self-help
Yes.
books can be a replacement, or would it be
Yes.
a supplement?
Well, there's a new form of therapy called biblio. It's not that new, but it's relatively new. It's called bibliotherapy, and it's the use of self-help books to support well-being. And so I actually just wrote an article about this very topic. And what I really say is to pay attention to the quality of the self-help book that you're reading and the reason why you're reading it. And so self-help books can be very useful, can be very effective, but you really need to pay attention to what it is that you're reading and why you're reading it. Sometimes bibliotherapy is used in conjunction with more traditional forms of therapy, talk therapy. And so I think there is a place for self-help books to help with well-being. And I think because they're so accessible, it's a great tool for a lot of people. The challenge just is making sure that you're finding a book that is, I would say, evidence-based, uh, because you want to be reading good quality. I don't know how else to say it. It's just I have another study under review right now, and as I say, unfortunately, a lot of the sort of the bestsellers, books in the bestsellers lists, um, are not written are are not written by people with either backgrounds in psychology or a medical degree or someone with advanced training in sort of mental health, well-being, and sometimes the information that makes its way into these very popular books is not necessarily based on science.
That makes sense. Thank you so much. We have a question from Trish. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, I think I am. It was the reading at night to help you go to sleep. I've always been a voracious reader. I read a lot. I found that if I was reading a novel and I took it to bed, I forced myself to stay awake so that I could keep reading my novel.
Yeah, yeah, that
So,
could be a problem. That could be a problem.
so,
Yep.
so I actually managed to transition to what's called Chicken Soup for the Soul books.
Yep.
Do you know them?
Yes.
Because they're short little stories.
Yep.
And I actually have a collection of probably a dozen of them now. And I rotate through them. And so at night, when I lie down, I read like 2 or 3 of these little stories. They're quite often very touching. And, I end up, maybe a little bit even weepy, which makes you relax. And it really works for me. So I just thought, I would would pass
Yeah.
that along to see, because I found that it was a real problem if I would to do the. And anyway, thank you for the presentation. I've really enjoyed the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I really like psychological thrillers. So, confession here that I do read a lot of
Yeah,
psychological thrillers, and if they're too thrilling, I find that I'm
yeah,
staying up all night reading them. So I'm not sure that's probably the best thing I should be reading before bed.
that.
So
I, I, I
it is important to choose, I think, material to read that is conducive to then falling asleep, not
yeah,
necessarily something that's keeps you on the edge of
no.
the edge of your bed.
Yes, that was what was happening. And I did find that the transition has worked. I mean, I've been using it probably for, I don't know, probably 10, 20 years. I can't remember how
Right?
many, but it did make a big difference to just use the smaller stories. And I do, I'm my eyes are closing and
Yeah,
so I put the book down and turn out my light and
yeah. And I just want to put one last, I know we're running out of time, one last plug. If anybody really enjoys reading poetry, because usually poetry, as you say, Trish, they're short.
yeah,
Poetry is great. There's lots of really positive work around poetry and the impact it has for well-being. So if you're looking for short passages, put a poetry book by your bedside, and that might do the
yeah,
trick. So very similar to chicken soup for the soul.
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Alrighty, I think we have one more question from Priscilla.
Hi, this is for Joanie. I just wanted to ask, I don't even know how to really articulate this, but as an aging person, oh, my video's not on, sorry. As an aging person who has had over the last few years setbacks with, injuries and osteoarthritis, and every time you come after you get a setback and then you try to come back and it's that much harder. And So do you have any thoughts about that, Joanie, as to what one can do? Number one, it's very, very discouraging. A few years ago, I was going to prove that aging was not going to affect my fitness. And then COVID hit, and then I have a partner with dementia and Parkinson's, so caregiving, and then got osteoarthritis. And every time I get up, I wonder what I'm going to have going on in my body. And I don't want to end up like a little frail senior.
Yeah, I mean, I first and foremost, what I can say is that certainly you're not alone in your story. I mean, that is certainly something that we hear from participants in the Choose to Move program about having to readjust their goals and readjust their activities. And I think one of the things that our activity coaches try to do within Choose to Move is to take that long lens view and knowing that there's going to be fluctuations for people based on their circumstances. And while a particular activity might work for somebody at one point in time, that activity may need to change or be adjusted. And so too did the expectations. So I think as much as it is about the activity, it's about the community of support around being able to adjust your goals.
Okay. Well, and I'll just be kind of funny right now is that I told my trainer that I've adjusted my goal of being on the cover of Sports Illustrated in a bikini to being on the cover of Sports Illustrated, being able to get off the toilet.
Yeah. Well, and for many people we hear it's about, mitigating a fall or that there are that the goals become different.
And also you have to change the perception of you and what, like aging is not for the faint of heart. That's what I'm finding.
No, and again, like I think we certainly hear that. That's why, I think people really like being the groups of sort of 10 to 15 because we are able to facilitate those conversations. And I think some of the best things that happen within the context of the group are, the group tips and tricks and strategies, but the support because most people are on a journey with fluctuations. It's not just that journey to winning a marathon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Perfect. I think this is the official end to the event, everyone. I don't think there's any more questions. Thank you so much, Joanna and Joanie, for sharing your knowledge today on how community can play such a critical role in our well-being journey. And of course, thank you all for joining us today. And I'm wishing you all a lovely rest of your week.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.